Well, I'm calling this meeting to order, and we have live simultaneous Spanish interpretation of the board meeting will be provided for those viewing online. Se dispondrá de interpretación simultánea del inglés al español durante la reunión de Consejo de Educación para quienes la estén viendo por internet. And now we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And now we're ready for a roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Alvarez Flores.
Here.
Dr. Armistead is absent. Mrs. Carty.
Here.
Ms. Ehrman.
Here.
Mrs. Frost is absent. Mrs. Reed.
Here.
And Mr. Walker is not here right now, but he may be joining online shortly.
All right, so moving on to changes to the agenda, and we do have a change. Action item 20 is going to be the adoption of the resolution for application for waiver of education interpreter certification. So, and now it's time for any board comments. Does anyone have any comments? No? Okay.
I'll just say very quickly, I'll take my time to acknowledge some of our community partners who are directly helping keep students in their seats at school. And those partners I'm referring to are the Fund for Santa Barbara 805 UndocuFund, the Immigrant Legal Defense Center, CARP Children's Project in the community in which I live. All told, there's about 1,800 community members who've been impacted by ICE, deported, detained. Those are family members, there are children involved, and there's a lot of fear. And these agencies are really meeting the moment and providing direct assistance, cash support, in addition to support for families, and allowing kids to show up for school without being fearful that they'll be taken away from their families. So just taking my moment to shout out to them. Thanks.
Thank you. Very important information. Appreciate you mentioning that. And I would like to take my time to congratulate our esteemed board member, Mary Beth Carty, for being recognized by the Santa Barbara Foundation as a Person of the Year, along with Dorothy Largay. So it has been an honor to serve with you these last few years on the board and to see you in action. You're such a dedicated community member, and your passion for education just shines through, whether your work with the Orfila Foundation or on the countless boards that you are participating in for the benefit of our youth in this community. It's an honor and a privilege to serve alongside you and to see you in action. So congratulations again. I couldn't think of a better person to deserve this honor. And
Thank you very much for those exceedingly kind words. It is my pleasure and it is my honor to serve on this board with leaders like Susan and before her, Bill Cerrone, and colleagues like you. I feel like we're on the right team, and thank you.
Gives me chills. Exciting. It is very. And so now, as the time for public comments, do we have any public comments?
None.
None. All right. So now we can move along to the superintendent's report. Hand it over to you, Superintendent Salcido.
Thank you. I was wrapped up in all of the celebrations, so let me take my moment to get myself composed here. Good afternoon to the board, and good afternoon to Mr. Walker, who just joined us from our dual location. So glad, yes. Yes, a great. So
happy to be here.
great. So you can hear us all right, Guy? Great, good. And to our team here in the audience today, good afternoon to all of you. Happy springtime. I want to echo congratulations, Mary Beth Carty. You know, we're all claiming you as our person of the year. Yeah, and so well deserved. So really excited to continue to celebrate you. And congratulations and thank you so much for all that you've done to impact our entire county and our community. So really, really excited. Yeah, honored. Claiming our person. I also want to claim another individual on our board who is a champion, getting a champion award. He and his wife, Molly, so Guy Walker and Molly Correa Walker as a champion for the Family Services Agency, being awarded in May. I'm looking up to you here, but I don't know where. Yeah, so congratulations to you, Guy and Molly, for the FSA award. And that event is happening on the evening of our May board meeting. So really exciting. Congratulations, Guy, and thank you. Yes, 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 yes.
For the recognition and it's our honor to serve the community.
Thank you, thank you. And you have the rest of my report here in your booklet. Wanted to call out the communications team for winning the statewide awards. They're on page 2. Yep. Awards of excellence, the highest award you can receive in 3 areas. The entire comms team really does phenomenal work. I know you see it every day. Cammie Barnwell is here in the room as our director of communications, but I know she would say it takes the entire team. And so congratulations to the comms team and with huge thank yous. Today, there in the auditorium, there's a Young Artists and Authors exhibit. It's a partner city presentation, and the Children's Creative Project is working with the partner city. And so there'll be an exhibit on your way out of SBCO, so you're welcome to walk through. It's between 4 and 6 o'clock. And then at your places is an invitation for the education celebration. And as we know, there are some conflicts. This is a season of many, many events. At our May board meeting, we'll ask the board to act upon reimbursing board members for attending. But if you'd like to attend, please let us know and we'll make sure to get that table going for you. Otherwise, I'm really, really so proud of all of the many accomplishments from the divisions and staff that are in the report. And with that, I'll see if there are any questions from the board. Otherwise, I'll pass it back to you, Madam Chair.
All righty, so now we'll move to the consent agenda. And before we do vote on it, I just did have one quick question on item 10 for credentials and other certification documents. I noticed there were 6 teaching permits for statutory leave, and I didn't know what that was. And so I just wanted a little bit more clarification on that.
Great. Let's take a minute to go to that. It's in section 10. And can you point me to where you're looking?
Oh, yeah. Let me see here. So on the consent agenda, it's, and we can also table and come back to it at another meeting. So, and the board book, it starts on page 24, where that's the credentials and other certifications. And there's, so the expiration date for 2027, there's through the list of the names. If you go down for expiration date 2027, and there's probably like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 10 names. And then there's 2 names that have that. And then on the second page, about 5 names down, there's another one.
Talking about teaching permit for statutory leave. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look over here to my colleagues, Amy Ramos and Gina Brana, if you want to approach the podium and share. Oh, sure.
Oh,
I'll show you. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So they're on teaching permits for statutory leaves and what they are.
Okay. I will probably need that to be able to confer with if we can come back to that and be able to
That's
answer
fine.
that question, unless Marty's here, I'm going to take advantage of what those
Happy to
situations
support
are.
you on this.
Thank you very much.
I know it's very arbitrary, but
So the TIPSL, that's what we call it, is a particular type of permit that's allowable when individuals are out on a statutory leave. So somebody, for example, might be out on pregnancy leave. You can bring someone in, a substitute, on a longer term basis. They have to be provided with concentrated training throughout that process and monitoring.
okay, perfect. All right, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I've seen all the other ones many times and I was like, didn't know. So thank you again for indulging
Appreciate the
that
question.
So now we can go ahead and take a vote. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Passes, and so now
We
we'll-
see Guy's hand too. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
guys. And now we'll move on to the action items. So the recommended approval of the Santa Barbara County Education Office Comprehensive School Safety Plan. Oh,
You broke it up?
oh, my goodness, that was quick. Sorry, guys. That's what that beeping light was. Okay. So, I'll guess I'll say that again for all those watching us on video. So action item number 13, the recommended approval of the Santa Barbara County Education Office Comprehensive School Safety Plan. So, the superintendent recommends the approval of the SBCEO Comprehensive School Safety Plan for Juvenile Court and Community School, Special Education, Early Care and Education. So I'll hand it over to you, Superintendent. So Cito, if you'd like to say.
Thank you so much. I would be happy to, and I'll invite Bridget to say a few words as well. It's an annual safety plan that we're asking you to review and approve. We've updated it to make sure that we're complying with all of the necessary laws, but also wanting to make it very practical for our juvenile court and community schools in terms of safety. Very important for us. Let me see if Bridget has any comments about that as well.
I think you covered it. I would just say that in the book, you may see some redacted pages, and those are specific due to tactical information that can be redacted from the plan. I will say it's a large effort, takes a big team. Dennis Thomas, our school safety liaison, Director Elise Simmons, who you're all aware with, and our special ed team, our JCCS team, they all work on this. It was approved at our school site council at their February meeting, so it met the requirement of being approved by March 1st by the school site itself. And it is a little unique just from a district perspective because we have various sites that we're covering through this plan. So this is a complementary plan to our larger emergency operations plan. So unless there are questions specifically.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. It's just, I appreciate how well it's laid out. I couldn't help but think, from being a nurse and you guys having all these specific codes documented in a specific way, that it gave clarity to what the emergency was to cut down on cross chatter. I think that was a great idea, but reviewing the plan, it looked great.
Agreed. Anything else? Okay, thank you. So now, do we have a motion to approve?
I will
this?
move to approve.
Okay, do we have a
second.
second? Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, it passes. And then we'll move on to board policies, reading and adoption. So, yes. All right,
Thank
if
you,
you'd like to
Mari. Thank you very much.
take over.
Oh, I don't know that it was green when we were talking, but it's green now. So you have 5 policies in front of you that are presented for your consideration. All 5 of these are a cluster of policies that are relevant to recent legislative changes that have to do with immigration enforcement and the response to that. So they're all in that same world. It came specifically from 4 different legislative bills that passed. The policies really complement something that we implemented recently, which was SBCEO training for all staff. We developed collaboratively, so it was a big team of people working on this. We developed 4 different video modules. One of them is focused on just a general overview. The second is understanding, let me look for the understanding warrant types. The third is family support and caregiver affidavits. And the fourth is on notifications and documentation. So those were rolled out and are required training for all staff. The general overview is required and some of the others are required for point people like managers and people who are going to be leading teams. The 5 policies that are brought to you today solidify the operations of SBCEO within those contexts. They're focused on safety plan development, which you just learned about, the protection of student and staff information, how requests for records must be handled, and proper response to immigration enforcement activity. One of these 5 policies, the student records one, is a revision, and the rest of them are new to our organization. So we'll just kind of walk through each of them briefly, high-level bullet points of what they're about, and then if you have any questions, we can go from there. So the first one is the comprehensive safety plan. That, as you know, it addresses the development and annual review of comprehensive school safety plan for SBCEO schools, and in our case, it's specific to JCCS. You review and approve those plans annually to ensure compliance with state safety requirements. One thing I wanted to point out is in that heavily redacted document, which is challenging to read through the redactions, but there are 2 sections, section C and H, both of which have content that directly relate to immigration enforcement and the response to that as well. So that has been integrated into that plan as well. Questions on that one before I go to the next one?
And if I may interject, Mari, as you're explaining each of the board policies, I did want to talk a little bit about the process for a moment. One is related to CSBA templates and their board policies. So all of these 5 follow the CSBA template pretty exactly. So just wanted you to know that it's not a huge shift at all from the language that is recommended. So that's number 1. And number 2, just wanted to ensure that, we have a board policy committee, and normally we vet all these through the board policy committee. But in this case, we thought that they were timely. They need to be brought forward to the board. But they're also very straightforward. We thought that it would be okay to go ahead and go to the full board for either action today or for a first read and action next time. So just as you're thinking about the process, and we talked with the committee chair, Sarah Reed, for that. And so that's why we're bringing them forward today. So thank you, Mari. Keep on going. Yep.
Okay, the second policy is access to county education office records. So it outlines the public's right to access SBCEO records in accordance with the CPRA, California Public Records Act. It clarifies procedures for responding to those requests, including electronic communications. And it ensures confidential student and personnel information continue to be protected from disclosure when required by law. Any questions on that one? Okay, the third one is the response to immigration enforcement. Do you want to speak to the old one we had, the 5,000? Okay.
No, keep going. Yeah, thank you.
So this is a new policy that was required by the recent legislation. It expands the guidance on responding to immigration enforcement, previously just focused on students, to also including staff. So that's why it's under the 1,000s instead of the 5,000s. It prohibits collecting or sharing information regarding a student's immigration status unless it's legally required. And it establishes procedures for responding to requests for student records, employee information, or access to SBCEO facilities by immigration enforcement officials. Okay. The next one is the revision, and this one we had previously adopted. It's for specific to student records.
Quick
Excuse me,
question.
the guy has a question.
Yes.
Is SBCEO and local and county law enforcement, are we all on the same page, or maybe I'll just leave it there. Are we all on the same page?
So I can speak to the CSSP, the safety plan. That was a collaborative effort that involved law enforcement as well. If you're speaking specific to immigration enforcement and reaction to that, there are pieces of it that, yes, have been developed with law enforcement also. There are other pieces of it, I'm not sure whether those have been outlined specifically.
So I guess my interest is in making sure that there's ongoing conversation between SBCEO and local and county law enforcement that, first of all, I would hope we're all on the same page. And secondly, to the extent that we are not on the same page, I would hope that there's ongoing discussion and dialogue.
I believe the answer to that is yes. Yeah. Are you referring specifically to immigration enforcement activity on school campuses or
Yeah,
to schools?
yeah, but yes, yeah, slash and ICE and all those things related. But yes, immigration
Yeah.
is specifically what I'm making reference to.
Guy, and I'll jump in. This is Susan. And first of all, you asked such a brief question that can be unpacked in so many different ways. And I think that is really important that we discuss. In terms of immigration enforcement and the board policies, for example, providing information or withholding information based on warrant type and circumstance, all follow the law. So all of this is not in conflict with current California law. None of it is in conflict. In speaking with Dennis Thomas, who is a retired sheriff's deputy and now our liaison, we are also aligned with the law. So we're following the law, and it doesn't conflict with even what he believes, I will say, because I've spoken to him, would be the right practices and best practices for law enforcement. So I feel really confident that this is an approach. These board policies represent following the law, but also protecting, bless you, protecting the children and staff. Not only protecting them from activities, but protecting them from being liable for going outside of what the law might require. So I really feel these are about protecting and being very clear about what the law says and our practices are. I think beyond that, a question that you aren't asking, and I don't know that you are asking me to even talk about, but I think that we all see other activities that just aren't following what it feels like these are, codified, formalized, clear laws. And I think that is a question none of us can answer as far as what is it aligned with the larger like ICE enforcement. But I know that in directly speaking with the sheriff, speaking with the undersheriff, speaking with police chiefs, there is a very clear line in the conversations I've had with them that they are not ICE enforcement. They are not representing ICE or immigration enforcement. They're law enforcement, trained police and sheriff's deputies who would follow these laws. So I know that we're in lockstep there. How that gets handled, none of us can actually, unfortunately, we said this before, we used to be able to say, for sure, we are here to protect all of our children, and we of course are. But what happens outside of our control is outside of our control. But I think these are really important board policies to have to clarify that we are aligning with the law.
And I don't want to belabor, but first of all, you have somewhat answered, at least in part, what I'm looking for, which is, as a community, we need to make sure we're talking to each other. And it sounds like either you are officially invited to sit at a table or you're making a way at the table to make sure that the county's position is being made clear.
Yeah.
I would hope we are also doing the same sort of thing on the local levels for a local school district. While they ultimately have to have their own policies and so forth and so on, just the alignment and the ongoing dialogue, I think, is important to ensure the safety of our families, our students, and quite frankly, even law enforcement, so that where we can mitigate conflict, I think it's important. So anyway, that
Thank
was
you.
one point that I wanted to make.
Thank you. Agreed. Thank you so much.
Can add one small thing to that as well. In the response to immigration enforcement policy, it does have reference to everything that we're required to do and what we would expect to happen under the law. But that if immigration officials were to go into non-public spaces anyways, that it's important that staff not interfere or impede in that activity. So it's maintaining that piece of not getting involved if it gets challenging. Okay.
Thank you.
So I believe we were on student records. So this is a policy we previously had. There are some changes to this policy. Overall, the policy addresses the maintenance, confidentiality, and security of student records aligned with FERPA and state laws. The updates reinforce that immigration or citizenship information may only be collected or disclosed as allowed by law. And it strengthens protections for digital student records and cybersecurity safeguards. So one thing that shifted here from the old one was some extended language on third-party databases and safeguards for issues related to technology, AI use, cyber attacks, and breaches. Okay, and the last one is the release of directory information. This is a policy that governs when limited student directory information may be released and the rights of parents to opt out of such disclosure. So it's focused on military and college information being provided to those entities, and otherwise parents and 18 or older year old students being able to opt out of that. That's the general overview. Any questions on those?
Any questions? All right, I think we're good. Thank you so much for going over that with us, Mary.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I may, as you're going to be asking for a motion, it may be that you are ready to move and accept these board policies today. It may be that you want to bring them back for a second read. We realize that there's a little bit of a difference process here. So that may be up to you and the board. But I did want to say, if you were going to adopt the board policies, I'd like to suggest an amendment to one. And that is the second one in your book. It's access to county education office records. And in the final paragraph, after reading this multiple times, even after submitting it to the board, that final paragraph says that members of the public would be granted to be able to examine records in the presence of county education office staff members. And that just isn't the practice. We often get Public Records Act requests. We will send them to the individual. They are not required to be here and present in front of us. So that would be an amendment that I would suggest that you strike that paragraph when adopting this record. So strike the whole paragraph. Yeah. And by the way, in the template for CSBA, it was an optional paragraph that you could add in in looking at it, we looked at it one way and I thought, nope, this is definitely not a practice that we would uphold. So, okay.
Okay, great. So we are looking for a motion to adopt the board policies and to amend the last paragraph of the access to county education office records. Do I have a
I
motion?
so move.
Second.
Okay, any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
perfect. So it
Thank you.
passes.
If I made one more interruption, sorry. Thank you for the action by the board. When Mari presented to you the response to immigration enforcement, she talked about the shifts. It is board policy 1445 that you've just adopted. The shift was that it was a student, it had to do with students before, and now we expanded it to staff as well. So now it's in the 1,000s instead of the 5,000s. So in a future board meeting, we are going to bring forward the student one, the 5,000, to delete it from the board policies, since this will now take precedence over that. So just wanted to let you know it's coming. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
We'll be prepared.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move forward to item 15, reimburse expenses for board members to attend the Santa Barbara County School Boards Association annual dinner. So our board will consider whether to approve the reimbursement of actual and necessary expenses for board members to attend the Santa Barbara County School Boards Association annual dinner on April 16th, the 2026 at 5:15. Do I have any questions about this before we take a vote? Okay, so do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Okay, do I have a second? All right, any opposed? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the vote passes unanimously. And next, we're moving to information items. So we have 16, the update on the Olive Grove Charter School. So Superintendent Superintendent of Student and Community Services, Bridget Robert.
Hi. So yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, you received a memo from myself through Anna Friedland. And before I go into it, I just wanted to see if you would like for me to review the memo completely. I know it was short, so I'm not sure if everyone's had a full chance to read through the whole
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Okay. So I don't know if, Mr. Walker, you have a copy of the memo in front of you or not, but to begin, the memo was really in response to last month's board meeting. As you all know, that day I was in Sacramento at the State Board of Education meeting where Olive Grove, Santa Barbara was there for their appeal hearing, at which the state board did renew their application and granted their appeal for a 5-year term, which will start July 1st of this year and run through June 30th of 2031. And they designated at that meeting for the county board and county office to become the authorizer. So since then, in fact, I haven't even shared this with Susan yet today, but just today, the state board minutes were posted, a draft. So we have submitted the renewal notification paperwork to CDE just right before this board meeting, in fact, to state that we will then, in fact, be authorizing the charter school. So that's just a formality that we needed to attend to. The memo sort of addresses a few of the questions. I did watch the board's meeting from last month and took notes related to several of the questions that the board raised related to the authorization and what does that mean. And so the memo starts with a little bit of background about Olive Grove. As you all know, Olive Grove, Santa Barbara will be the school that we will be responsible to authorize. It is a TK-12 school. It's a non-classroom based independent study charter that is located here in Santa Barbara. There are students, I will say, there was a lot of conversation last month about where do the students come from. They do come from Santa Barbara Unified mostly, but also they have students from Goleta and Hope, so some of the other local school districts. The school is operated as part of a nonprofit corporation. So Olive Grove School, Charter Schools Incorporated operates the 4 school sites. And one of the questions raised was about each school and are they independent of each other? And they are. So each of the 4 schools here in Santa Barbara County will have a different authorizer and are independent of each other, even though they're underneath the umbrella of the nonprofit. So we think of them each independently, and our responsibility will solely be for the Santa Barbara Charter. Additionally, just here in the background, something to note is that the Charter Corporation as a whole also has its own governing board of directors. And so they really set the tone. They monitor the fiscal oversight. They do policy development, program implementation, similar to a school district board of governors or even the county board as you oversee JCCS. So that is their responsibility. The next step that we'll be doing is really developing an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the charter to sort of outline roles, responsibilities, and clarify what our role as authorizer will be. That is in statute, so it isn't something that we're making up, but it is designated in Ed Code specifically. And so I'll talk a little bit that really there are multiple layers to that. I know that was one of the questions, but sort of just broad for right now, broad category. We'll be monitoring their fiscal health. We'll be looking at their LCAPs, so academic performances. We'll be required to conduct at least one annual site visit. We'll have a point of contact for the charter school. So it won't be, I will say, just like a JCCS school, but it is still some monitoring over the charter because they have their own system. And then I go into some key considerations, which some of that I just actually covered. I'm right on track here. There were some other questions about fiscal sort of implications. The charter school will receive in lieu property tax dollars combined for their total revenue from the districts that they have students from, as well as some other revenue. So you'll see that reflected in the memo. That funding will come directly from CDE or from the state. That won't come through our county office. Additionally, for our responsibilities as an authorizer, we are entitled to a 1%, up to 1% sort of oversight fee. And when I looked at, with our help of Associate Soups, Mr. Torres, we looked at their current revised budget. It was roughly this year at 1.4 million. So we're talking about $14,000 on an annual basis. So it's pretty nominal. There isn't a lot of revenue that will come with the authorization of that. And then just in terms of where we are in next steps, I'll just end with that here and then take any questions you might have. Currently, I've reached out to the superintendent there, Meg Ridman. She's on spring break, as many of our schools are, and have asked, and so tentatively asked her to present maybe at our May meeting. So we'll look at what her availability is, but invite her to come and meet the board and provide a presentation. And if May doesn't work, we'll look to then June, I guess. Also looking at next month, providing the board with the full renewal petition. In the past, our board has had an opportunity on an appeal to review a charter school's petition. And we know that this process, you didn't get that. So we'll provide you with that petition so you can read through it and get the history and all of the background related to Olive Grove, all of the detail, as well as the CDE's staff report findings. I'm going to supply that to you based on their review of the petition and recommendation to the state board. And then my goal is to provide the board with a draft MOU to review at our May meeting so that you would have a draft. That MOU then would come subsequently in our June board meeting for your approval. We do want to have or need to have an MOU agreement in place and by both boards have been reviewed and approved before that July 1st deadline. So we are on a really tight timeline with that March notification. So that's sort of where we are at in terms of process. I know that this doesn't answer all of the questions that came up at last month's meeting. There are probably going to be many questions that will arise, but we wanted to at least give you a little bit as to where we are and what it means broadly as we continue to dive into it. I will just say myself, I had Olive Grove Charter when I was superintendent at Los Olivos, and was responsible at that point to close that charter school. And then it has since evolved and gone out and become independent. So for me, it's kind of coming a little bit full circle, which is interesting. But also that, I haven't had an opportunity to really brush up on all the charter laws and changes that are there. So myself, and I believe someone from our fiscal team, will be attending a conference in June for charter authorizers. Just want you to be aware of that, to come up to speed, because this is a lot of new learning. It will take a team effort in terms of our role here as authorizers. And I know that was a question last month about, myself as sort of point, but it will involve, a team here at SBCO, as many things do, to become authorizers of the charter. So at this point, I'll stop and ask if you have specific questions you'd like to try for me to answer today.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if this is the beginning of the trend toward the charter support, involvement.
Yeah, we've always had a little like technical type support for our charters, but this is definitely the first time we've become an authorizer. And I know that Dr. Salcido mentioned last month that this is, new for our county office, but many of our counter colleagues throughout the state at county offices are already authorizers. So it isn't uncommon for that to happen. And in fact, some have multiple charters that they authorize.
Interesting to share that information.
In the past, when Olive Grove was submitting petitions at each of the schools districts, they fell short. So there were holes in their compliance. And I'm wondering, as authorizers, you'll be reviewing LCAP, that's an opportunity to really strengthen this program, I would think.
Yes.
Site and
Yeah.
review?
I mean, we will review their documents. We'll make sure they're in compliance and following, all of the legal requirements and laws, and looking at academic progress. And, again, it's a 5-year term. And so we'll have regular meetings with them, receive those reports and talk about it. I currently their dashboard data, they were a middle performing school, and the way that the criteria for renewal has changed since AB 1505 is that if it's a middle performing charter, that they're eligible for that 5-year renewal. So it in this case, I will say that they met that criteria. It's interesting for me too, as I kind of looked through their data, they're a small school. So the number of students that they're testing sometimes can also look, I'm just saying this from a different perspective, they can look a little skewed. It reminds me a little bit of like some of our Cord Community School. It's small numbers of kids. And so I was looking just for an example at I think their 3rd and 4th grade test scores, and they had 1 student test in those grades. So it's really, I think that's just something to be aware of, is that it isn't a large, comprehensive school campus. So when we get those small numbers, sometimes that in size really does impact scores. And so, but we will review everything and ensure that they're, meeting their markers, that they have their goals in place, and have those difficult conversations if needed.
Great. One other question. Since it's non-classroom based and independent, where does it fall within our trustee areas, or does it?
That's a really great question. I don't know the answer to that in terms of your specific trustee areas. The campus, I want to say, I don't want to say because I'm not sure if it's at the same location it was, but we can get the address. Yeah,
Just wondering.
yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
Board Member Walker, do you have any questions?
Yeah, probably more of a comment. First of all, I'm sitting here smiling because I had been on this board for a while before I realized, why do I know Bridget? And so I recall when Bridget was at Los Olivos and in the early days of charter schools in the county, I remember Olive Grove being the second, because of course College School District had the first charter school. I would like to say, and this, I know this could go into future agenda items, I would love for us to have a robust conversation about charter schools. I think first of all, I don't think very many people really understand the purpose of charter schools or why do they exist. And there's just a lot there. And then, the administration of charter schools and who's overseeing and supervising so forth and so on. And sometimes it's lost on us that charter schools are simply public schools that have special rules. But it would seem, again, from our position, it would be a good leadership role for us to take some leadership in the discussion about charter schools, why they exist, where they absolutely maybe make sense, and to some extent, the unpopular conversation about sometimes why they don't make sense. And it's great the fact that Bridget has been involved with charter schools, I think, close to since the beginning. So anyway, just a comment. Again, maybe that's a future agenda item, but I think it would be great if we had a robust conversation about charter schools.
Other questions or you today?
I just wanted to say thank you for answering all of our questions and providing this memo and going over this information. It feels we have, well, not feels that we did have a very short runway for this process. And it does feel like we're all learning as we go, especially for you all, because you're doing the work, and we're observing and just trying to wrap our heads around the process as well. So that really helps, and to continue to have updates, whatever they may be, until that July 1st and beyond is super helpful. I did have a question specifically about the fiscal impact going into that 1% that we're able to charge. In your estimation, do you feel like that annual fee, the 1% actually encompasses the amount of time and effort and labor that is put into the work to be an authorizer?
Great question. Being an authorizer will be new, so it's hard for me to estimate if that 1% is actually going to equate to staff time. We're really talking about staff time. My inclination is to say no, that it would not equate to the amount of work that will be required by our staff, but that is what the law allows us to charge, since we are not providing facilities for the charter. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes. Okay. That's all I have. So
Okay.
thank you again.
Thank
for
you.
the presentation, and we look forward to hearing more as time goes. Alrighty, so that brings us to the second information item, AB 1390, regarding board member compensation. And so we're going to have Associate Superintendent of Administrative Services, Steve Torres, speak about the bill.
Thank you and good afternoon. So yeah, I'll just kind of give an overview of AB 1390, the legislation as it states in the agenda item. is an adjustment to kind of a 40-year-old compensation rate for County Board of Education and School District Governing Board members. And so what it does is increase the maximum compensation rate or stipend rate. And that's based on, this adjusted cost of living and inflation to get to the numbers that they've arrived at. So what I'll do is walk through just some of the numbers because I think that's the best way to describe what the impact of the change is. It did take effect January 1st of 2026. And the maximum rates for CEOs, for COEs and districts is based on their average daily attendance. So there's multiple levels for districts and there's multiple levels for COEs. So I'll just kind of give some quick number comparisons. For school districts, there's 5 levels based again on average daily attendance. For the smallest districts, previously the maximum compensation rate was $60 per month. That's increased to $600 per month. And on the high end, for our largest school districts, or the largest school districts, we don't actually have any that fall into this range, but they're increased from $1,500 a month to $4,500 a month. For reference, our largest districts, they fall somewhere in the middle. So our largest districts, their rates would increase from $400 a month to $2,000 a month. And so if a district has multiple board meetings in a month, to get the per meeting rate, you would just divide the number of meetings by that monthly maximum. And again, this is a maximum, so it's up to that amount could the board members be compensated. On the COE side, there's 8 levels. And again, that's based on average daily attendance. The maximum on the low end, so for the smallest county offices, it increases from $160 a month to $800 a month. And on the largest COEs, it increases from $600 a month to $3,000 a month. We are a Class 3 COE, and so for the Class 3 COEs, the increase is from $300 a month to $1,500 a month. And so, again, same for COEs. If there's multiple meetings within a month, then you would divide the number of meetings by the maximum for that month. So you'll see there that there's some considerable increases that result from the change in this legislation. A little bit about where we are in the county right now. Prior to January 1st, so prior to the bill being enacted, our school districts' compensation rates range between $0 a month. We had a few districts that don't provide any stipend, up to $400 a month. And that $400 a month is the maximum for our largest districts. That's why the range is within there. Since January 1st, only a few of the districts have addressed addressed the new legislation. And so their board members, so only a few have increased or even addressed the increased rates in compensation. On the COE side, the Class 3, and I'll just focus on them because that's the size that we fall into, their compensation rates prior to January 1st range from $20 a meeting to $300 a month. And again, $300 a month was the max for a Class 3 COE. Since January 1, about half of those 8, there's 8 county offices that fall into Class 3. About half of those have addressed the change in legislation, AB 1390. And of those, it ranges from not changing theirs at all, so they considered it and didn't change their rate, to some changing it to the maximum, to some somewhere in between. So, and that's about half, again, half of the 4, or half of the 8 COEs that have brought that kind of forward to consider. So that's kind of the general overview, a lot of numbers, but please let me know if you have any questions.
And Steve, you want to say what the current rate is?
Yeah, our current rate is $40 per meeting. And we did the per meeting rate as some do. Some have it listed per month per meeting because it's for calculation purposes.
Perfect, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
I think one addition, if I may, what it doesn't address, what the law doesn't address are health and welfare benefits. So that I think we've begun collecting some of that, Steve,
Yes.
But that isn't part of the law. So you're hearing about the stipends, but not necessarily about any other benefits that might come in any county. So just wanted to point that out. And again, thank you, Steve, for doing the background. Some at 0, some at no change and some at significant changes. So you can
Mhm.
see the wide spectrum. And so thank
And
you.
I will add just quickly, because you mentioned the health and benefits, what it also doesn't change is travel reimbursement. So that's still at the employee rate. So it just reiterates that, but that didn't change from the previous. And there's also language within the bill that doesn't change from the previous legislation around 5% increases annually can be considered by boards as well. So there are some things that didn't change, but it's that maximum. That's the focus of the AB 1390.
Perfect, thank you. So we wanted to bring this to the board. A few months ago, I had attended SBC SBA meeting, and this was a topic, and they had discussed some of the districts were looking into this. So we thought it would be a good idea just to bring this as an information item with the idea of, would we want to take this back to maybe policy committee, or have a further discussion or vote, or how discussion in the board meeting. So wanted to get your thoughts on that as the board, or if we want to just table it for now.
I think the presentation was pretty clear, and that you have your notes from it. I don't know if it needs to go to a policy meeting. I feel terrible saying that, being the chair of the committee. But I feel like I would love to hear what everyone else says, not just the people in the committee. So if we could get a poll of everybody, I think it would be a good idea to chat.
Okay.
I just had all these little questions, like where does this money come from? And I never thought about it before. So all those little kinds of things of what happens if it is increased, what doesn't get done on this other end, or how are they affording these huge increases of, I just never think of those things. So that could be a big concern.
Thank you for reinforcing my point. I want to hear all the perspectives.
So, and I'm sure other things will come into mind, but that is nothing that I ever really thought about before. You just get here and you serve.
Mm-hmm.
I've never even asked that question before. How much do I get? I just never asked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not motivated to have a discussion about increasing it. It's a stipend that's nominal, and I don't feel any compunction to change that, but I can easily be, outvoted.
Board Member Walker, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us are kind of similar in this. I mean, honestly, when I ran for the board, I didn't know there was a stipend. There's a part of me that would say it would be interesting to have a conversation about it. One of the things that sort of strikes me about all these type of things, those of us who choose to run for it, who are not motivated at all by a stipend, it does suggest I can afford to do this. And so sometimes, like whatever this conversation is, it's like, are there good people out there who would be good serving the board, but the reality, no compensation creates a hardship, and so they don't run. And again, I'm not advocating for doing it or not doing it, but what I am saying is, I suspect that the people who are currently serving are sitting somewhat from a place of privilege, meaning you can afford to do this. I can afford to do this whether it's a stipend or not. And so if I vote, yes, let's increase the stipend, what does that feel like for the public? What does that feel like in terms of, I think the question that Vita just asked is like, does that have some impact on programs and services, which my guess is probably not. But I don't think it's just a function of, I don't need the increase, so I vote no. I think some sort of way we need to be looking at sort of future trustee folks, and what does it suggest if you leave the stipend as status quo? Anyway, that was convoluted, but that's kind of what my thought is. I don't think it's just a simple yes or no.
Mhm. Thank you for that. It sounds like maybe we have a discussion at a later meeting where it becomes a discussion item where we can go into more depth since this is just an information item right now. Want to Board Member Walker's point at the SBA meeting, one of the things that some of the board members in the district mentioned is that they have small children, and so they it was helpful for them to have a stipend in order to be able to pay for childcare, or even if they're hourly employees, to be able to make up for the time that they're taking off of work. So that kind of speaks to that equity lens of who might be out there in the future that might be able to be a board member that can't now because they're just not able to take that time during the day, during the work day, to be at a meeting. So if it works for everyone else, we can table this for another meeting as a discussion item.
Can I just ask one clarifying question? Steve, you mentioned a 5% increase. Is this a decision that can be brought back year upon year? So if you didn't want to do it this year, you could vote, or, if there were new board members, and this would come up as an annual decision? I'm just wondering about procedure. Okay.
And to clarify, in terms of the committee, not that this was what the board is wishing for this time, I'm hearing that it would be maybe fruitful to have a full board conversation, but it may be that the salary committee would be an appropriate committee in the future to be talking about salary and compensation for board members. So I say that in case in the future there's dialogue there rather than a board policy. It kind of goes to both ways, but I think perhaps the salary committee. Thank you.
All right, so we'll table that for now. And let's see, where were we? So now we have the other information item for the personnel report. Do we have any questions about the personnel report? Okay. So then we'll move to the information item for the Williams Uniform Complaint Quarterly Report, and we have no complaints. That's nice. That's always a good thing. And moving to action item 20. So for the recommended adoption of resolution for application for waiver of educational interpreter certification. And the superintendent recommends the adoption of resolution number 2609 for the application for a waiver for educational interpreter certification. And I think we've had these before. This has come up in our board meeting again before. So would you like to speak to it quickly? Or?
Right. Thank you. Director Amy Ramos actually presented last month on a resolution that the board passed and said, there will be one coming soon. And so we inserted it here because it is here. Same request to employ this individual while they're taking this exam. Yeah.
But
last month, I'm sorry, Trustee Armistead isn't here, but she asked about how many interpreters that we have. So I thought since I was coming back to you, I would try to have that information available. So we have 14 educational interpreter positions. 7 of them are filled with fully certified interpreters. So those are staff who have passed the very rigorous certification exam, and they're fully qualified. We have one person who is serving on what we call a waiver. So we've applied for a waiver on their behalf. And then we have 6 vacancies. As I mentioned last month, because that certification exam is so difficult to pass, it's really a very narrow pool that we recruit from. And that's why we have this whole waiver process. So it's something that we recruit for on a continuous basis. So
I just had a quick question. Is there any way to train people or support them?
So part of the
Because we had to do that in our district.
yeah, part of
Actually
what
have a team that helps out with
Yes.
all that.
part of what we have to demonstrate when we apply to the State Board of Education for a waiver is we have to present what they call a remediation plan. So that typically entails observing a fully certified interpreter, having a fully certified interpreter observe the person who's on the waiver. And the whole point is to build up the person's skills so that they will be able to pass the certification exam. So yes, that is part of the process.
Thank you. So now I'll ask for a motion to recommend the adoption for the resolution for the application for waiver of educational interpreter certification.
I'll move.
Okay, perfect. And any opposed? Okay, we're gonna go for a roll call vote.
Okay, Mrs. Alvarez Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cardy,
Aye.
Ms. Ehrman,
Aye.
Mrs. Reed,
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
But a question, which item are we on?
Action item 20.
It was added.
Oh,
Oh,
The interpreter.
all right.
oh,
yeah,
so we added, I'm sorry, we added this to the agenda.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The vote is aye.
Okay.
Thank you. The
Thank
motion passed.
you. So moving on now to future agenda items. We have a presentation by the Lompoc Teen Center regarding the Teen Leadership Advocacy Council and their advocacy trips. Also, we have a presentation by Future for Lompoc Youth and information on the Olive Crest Hope Refuge. And I would like to add, I know we've talked about this, but I would love to have a update on the playground area at the Juvenile Justice Court schools and what's going on with that request for repair.
We have the charter schools presentation teed up, right?
Yes, we do. Just want to make a comment for future agenda items and the one that you just mentioned as well. So for May, we have the exciting announcement for Teacher of the Year as well as Classified Employees of the Year for Santa Barbara County. So they'll happen in May. And you'll get a chance to meet the Superintendent for Olive Grove Charter School Santa Barbara, Meg Ridman, if she is able. So if she's able to attend, then we'll have that presentation as well. In terms of the playground area, I did get a response, just so that you know. And I think I had crossed wires, misunderstood or miscommunication of some sort. They said, the probation said that, in fact, the playground area is completely accessible and open for the students. It's the wrap around the fence area that needed to have the repair. And that's actually now queued up to get repaired, but that the area itself has actually always been accessible. And I did not have that understanding. Right. So
I thought they said they couldn't use it
closed it.
because it wasn't secure.
that's right. So
There was like
that's
a hole or something.
Yeah.
right.
Or ripping it.
So
So
confidentiality.
that's what
Yeah.
Sorry.
yes. So that was the report, and I would be happy to circle back and get more information for you, but I did want to give you the update because we had
That's great.
exchanged that
Say,
communication.
Awesome.
our ears heard something.
Different,
Yeah.
yes.
I saw something.
Yeah. Scooby-Doo moment. Okay. So now I guess we're ready for the adjournment for the next regular meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Do I have
I
a-
second it.
All right. All in favor? All right.
Wow, this is
Meeting
the quickest
adjourned.
meeting we've
Yeah, we're doing it here.